So this is really a time of great promise for treating blood cancers. We've got a whole range of new drug and transplant therapies being developed by brilliant scientists in the pharmaceutical sector. And if you're a patient, the critical thing for you is that those new drugs get approved as quickly as possible and you can access them in your health service. And I think what's become apparent through the COVID period is a recognition that rapid recruitment to clinical trials of novel agents is absolutely fundamental. I mean, the UK did an amazing job through the recovery trial, really leading the world in showing that dexamethasone improves outcome in patients with advanced COVID. And that's really what TAP does. It's a recognition that the rapid recruitment of patients to pivotal practice-informing trials using new novel agents is the final link in the chain for improving patient outcomes. There's no point having these drugs sitting on a lab bench. And actually, there's not much point if it takes 10 years to do a clinical trial to see whether they're any good. So a number of years ago, recognizing that the UK really has global assets, it has one of the largest populations coherently managed within the world, it has brilliant scientists, great clinical trialists, we recognise that by funding research nurses in major centres across the UK, we could create a catchment region of almost 25 million, globally significant numbers of patients, and that by accelerating the setup of clinical trials, bringing down the time to set up from 2.5 years to 6 months, and by ensuring that our network of research nurses offered patients patient information sheets so that they really knew about the study and that there was proper resource in the centres to report the trial, manage the patients, look at toxicity, report responses. You get a magical effect. You get extraordinary rapid recruitment to trials of complex new therapies, and by embedding genomics and biology assessments, you also understand how these drugs are working. So over the last 8 years, really, what TAP has done, and more recently the Impact Transplant Trials Network, is demonstrate a very simple principle, which is if you provide the tools, we can do the job. In this case, the tools are the research nurses, often overlooked, and the brilliant trial team to set the studies up. And then pharma, globally, are really interested in using the UK as a test bed for their novel agents. Patients have access to them. Clinicians drive the trials, and we generate practice-informing data that can be used with our colleagues in Rome or Paris or Chicago or Sydney, as happens at the moment, in conjunction with their great data as quickly as possible. So this is the future. As we develop such a promising pipeline of drugs, the focus now must be how do we fund and deliver the clinical trials as quickly as possible. And that's what TAP and that's what Cure Leukemia's funding is central to. In 2021, we have to be moving nimbly. So the secrets to advances in medical healthcare are data, genomics, new therapies, and integrating accelerated assessment of all these characteristics of patients in clinical trials. So we generate answers not only as to which are the new drugs, but in which patients are they particularly effective. And this is a huge opportunity. UK is the 6th largest economy, but it has a particular strength in life science, has particular strengths in data, in genomics. So actually the infrastructure that Cure Leukemia has built for trials acceleration is also an amazing platform for data acceleration, for genome acceleration, and finally, for acceleration of life-saving therapies. We still have a large number of patients with advanced disease or high-risk disease who we know not going to do well with current treatment, for whom potential therapies are available, which we'd love to open clinical trials for. And the challenge is that our bandwidth, the research nurse bandwidth, the data manager bandwidth, the trials coordinator bandwidth isn't wide enough. So we know that if there is additional funding for these key personnel, so many more patients could have access to trials and novel therapies. So what TAP and Cure Leukemia have done is a demonstration of the principle that we can do this. We can make something globally significant. We can impact patients' lives. We can generate practice-informing information. But there's so much more work to be done that there's a desperate need to drive more funds into this simple but incredibly effective model. Simple, because we've shown time after time that it works. Great engagement from clinicians across the whole UK. And effective, because our calculations show that in terms of drug access, just in terms of the cost of these drugs when they're approved, that every pound invested in acute leukemia releases at least 10 times that value in free drug and knowledge.